Today's lesson is on adding and subtracting mixed numbers. This is going to be really similar to the work that we were doing yesterday, but there's a couple extra steps, so make sure you don't miss out on it. Let's take a look at this problem to begin with. 3 1/2 plus 2 2/3. Now we see that our fractions don't have the same denominator, so we're going to have to start there. We find our least common denominator of 2 and 3, which is 6. We find our equivalent fractions. 1/2 is equal to 3/6. 2/3 is equal to 4/6. And then we rewrite the problem. 3 1/2 is now 3 3/6. And 2 2/3 is the same as 2 4/6. Now here, there are two options on how to move forward. I'll show you the one that I like the most, and then I'll show you the other one just in case you prefer to go that way. I start by adding the two fractions together. 3/6 plus 4/6. And get an answer of 7/6. Now I know that 7/6 needs to be turned into a mixed number. So I'm going to do that here. 7 divided by 6, which gives me an answer of 1 1/6. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add together my whole numbers, 3 plus 2, which gives me an answer of 5. Now all I have to do is combine my answer for the sum of the whole numbers and my answer for the sum of the fractions to get a final, complete answer for this problem. So 5 plus 1 1/6. We combine our whole numbers, and we get 6 1/6. Again, the work is pretty similar to what we were doing yesterday. The only extra bit that we're adding is that now we have to also add our whole numbers as well, as an extra step. Now what some people will do is they'll add the whole numbers first. 3 plus 2 gives you 5, and then add together the fractions. I've found that this has led to some mistakes. If you prefer going that way, it's totally okay. It should work just as well. For our next problem, we're going to do some subtraction. 4 1/4 minus 2 1/2. Now this problem is going to have an extra little twist. It's a twist that really messes students up a lot. So make sure you're paying extra careful attention this time around. Again, we have to start by finding a common denominator. Least common denominator of 4 and 2 is obviously going to be 4. So we're going to rewrite the problem. 4 1/4 minus 2 2/4. Right? We turned our 1/4 gets to stay the same, and 1/2, we multiplied them both by 2 to get 2/4. So we have 4 1/4 minus 2 2/4. This is where things get tricky. Obviously, we can't do 1 minus 2. So we have to borrow, just like we would in a subtraction of whole numbers. We have to borrow. But we don't borrow exactly the same way when we're borrowing with mixed numbers. So we borrow from the 4, and it becomes a 3. Here's where things are different. What we're going to add to that 1 is not a 10 like we normally do. But instead we're going to add whatever the denominator is. In this case the denominator is a 4, so we're going to add a 4. 1 plus 4 is 5. 5/4 minus 2/4. Now we can solve this problem. 5/4 minus 2/4 is 3/4. And 3 minus 2 is 1. Our answer is 1 3/4. The tricky part here is going to be borrowing, so please make sure you understand that before you move on. Feel free to go back, rewind, watch that section again. You've got to understand how to do that or you will not be successful. Now I want you to try and solve this problem on your own. Hit pause, and when you hit play, I'll give you the answer. The answer to this problem is 5 9/10. We found our least common denominator for 5 and 2, which was 10. Found our equivalent fractions, 4/10 and 5/10. Rewrote the problem, added our fractions, added our whole numbers, and combined 5 and 9/10. For the last problem I want you to do on your own, we're going to try a subtraction problem. 6 and 1/4 minus 3 and 3/5. Hit pause now and solve the problem, and when you hit play, I'll give you the answer. The answer to this problem is 2 and 13/20. We started by finding our least common denominator, which was 20. Then we found our equivalent fractions. 1/4 became 5/20, and 3/5 became 12/20. When we rewrote it, 6 and 5/20 minus 3 and 12/20, it became really obvious that we were going to have to borrow. We can't do 5 minus 12. So we borrowed from that 6 and it became a 5. Then we added whatever the denominator was, in this case it's 20, to our numerator. So that became 25. Now we can solve the problem. 25 minus 12 gives us 13. 2 and 13/20. You got that right, great job. If not, go back and check your work. Especially make sure you understand how to borrow when you're subtracting mixed numbers.